All right, we're here with Distressed Mullet editor Lisa Schell from in North Carolina temporarily, but she's on her way for a big trip. But we'll get into that later. Lisa's going to give us a rundown on the mullet this week, so go for it.
All right. Well, it's been another exciting week at distressedmullet.com. And we've been talking a lot lately about the issue of safety, specifically wearing PFDs, wearing leashes. So we decided to take a look at the latest statistics available on PFD usage and accidents and deaths. The Coast Guard doesn't track leash usage right now because that is not a requirement. Getting lots of comments from the website, hoping that the Coast Guard will start paying attention to leash usage, and so we can overlay that and see how it kind of compares and contrasts with the numbers they've been tracking. Really interesting statistics: 15 deaths last year, people who were supping in particular. And I think the thing that stands out to me is that in all of those deaths, major cause of death, drowning, but the cause of the accident that precipitated the drowning, getting away from the board, being ejected, that's a Coast Guard term, from the board, or somehow or another becoming departed, also a Coast Guard term, from the board. And I'm going to leave that right there and let you draw your own conclusions about what that may or may not mean. Worth a read, worth a look, some interesting and perhaps even some surprising things there too.
Well, Lisa, what's your take on, because a lot of comments that we see with safety, you see this that they should never sell a board without a leash, but considering all the different situations and locations that you could be in with a leash, the traditional surf leash, coil leash, ankle leash, quick release, I mean,
Right.
doesn't that make it really complicated? It's just not as easy as sticking a leash in with a board.
It can make it really complicated because there are certain situations, as most of us who have been paddling for a while know, where you don't want to use a leash. The whitewater, as you mentioned, in particular, you either don't use a leash or you use the quick release system. I think what that all points back to is education and taking classes. Don't just run out to the big box store and buy an inexpensive paddleboard and take it out to the leash. Get some training, take a class. They're popping up all over the country now. It's easy to get some basic instruction and learn when the leash and what kind of leash is appropriate for what setting.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problems are coming with the rental companies. You have phenomenal rental companies with instructors that are certified. They have a lot of experience, and then you have a lot of these. The van pulls up with 16 boards, and they all get on them. One of the editorials we had, I think 3 or 4 years ago, was that every rental place should have a basic skills certification or requirement for them to be able to rent boards, and it kind of got laughed off the site. Some people were like, we're pretty for it, but is it practical? Is that something that'll be insurance driven? I mean, what do you think about something like that?
It could be insurance driven, but the first thing that comes to my mind is, would you take a scuba certification class from a scuba shop that wasn't PADI or NAUI or one of the other internationally recognized scuba instruction organizations? Scuba has managed to avoid. Well, let me step back. The scuba business shops have managed to avoid government regulation by self-regulating and by having standards that are dictated by those professional scuba instruction organizations. So I think maybe there's a model there to look at.
Yeah, because if we don't govern ourselves, they're going to lay it down on us.
Right.
And
Right.
actually, when
Absolutely.
we spoke to the couple of Coast Guard representatives out at the Outdoor Retailer Expo last year. They said that they're not eager to impose laws, but that the problem is not from the federal level. The problem is that as you trickle down to the local can never give you more freedom than the national laws, because so they can never be less stringent than PFD, whistle, and light. But local laws can get more and more restrictive. So a state, a county, a lake, a local can say that the national laws are not enough. So in our lake, not only do you have to have a vest on, but you have to file say a course report, like if
Float
you're
plan.
a float plan, you have to, do X, Y, and Z. You have to pay $10 at the ramp. But they said that the problem isn't, going to come from us. The problem is going to be coming from your local municipalities and your state laws, where some representative is going to have a group that has seen a death, and they're going to say, we need legislation right now. And the people that are going to write the laws are not going to be paddlers. They're not going to be water people. They're just going to try and mitigate the risks and avoid any kind of liability when it comes to insurance and this litigious world.
And as more people try it, as more people on their summer vacation decide to rent from the person who pulls up at the lake shore or the beach with the load of the trailer full of paddle boards, it stands to reason that the number of injuries and deaths are going to increase. The more popular and the more folks are doing it. With that, because of our propensity perhaps for suits, there could be lawsuits, and that could force insurers to make things a little more stringent. Interestingly enough, and I'll be curious to see if this changes when the 2017 numbers are out. The number of accidents and deaths related or involving a SUP board that was rented in 2016 is actually a lot lower than you might think. That stuck out to me when I was looking at those numbers. Like I said, it will be interesting to see how that may change when the 2017 reporting period is over and we see the numbers from this year.
Yeah, and when we signal out the rentals, it's not because all of these deaths occurred by people who are renting boards from rental companies. Right. I don't want to imply that. The reason that I focus on rental companies is often they're the first time anybody's been exposed to a board. So they're the point of education. So there are a couple of gateways that are failing and a couple of gateways that are doing really well. In general, the rental gateways is doing really well. The modern media is horrible. The photos that you see, most people that are exposed to paddleboarding, Katy Perry is. I got a news alert about her this morning. The first thing I noticed is that her leash is attached to the handle on her board. So it goes from the back of her board and then attaches to the handle, so it's out of the way. And she's kneeling.
So the board is never going to get away from itself.
No. So fortunately, the board will always be safe with itself, whereas Katy Perry won't. But
Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe was a photograph of him, and I love Rob Lowe, especially in the West Wing. He was on a foil board somewhere in Hawaii. And there was no leash and no PFD. Now, if he was surfing, if he was in the surf zone, I can forgive the PFD bit, but oh my gosh, foil board, surf zone, no leash. Wow. And the only associated editorial content with that was, here's Rob Lowe. He's in his late 50s. He's got a hot body because he paddleboards.
Yep.
Woohoo.
And unfortunately, that's where millions of people are going to see paddleboarding.
Exactly.
So that's the main thing. And then when you see catalog shoots and whatnot, the photographers they're looking to put the clothing in its best possible light. So they're in a controlled situation. They're not necessarily going to pay attention. There's some people that will really, again, blame the SUP industry, but it's not really the SUP industry. I don't think that people in the SUP industry are the major problem. I think it's the people that are trying to use the SUP sport as a lifestyle example that are, they're kind of staging their own Disney World of paddling, and it's just not real. So the people are getting the wrong impression. So anyway, it's super interesting. I think last year, 2015, I think we had 7 deaths. So,
And there were 15
yeah.
in 2016.
So
So
it could be, depending on how you do your statistical analysis, it could be deaths are up by 100%, by 211%. There's so many ways to cut the data to make it look horrible. Twice as
right,
many people died this year than last. So
which is why it's interesting to look at that entire report, which takes into account accidents and deaths in all recreational boating. And the percentage in 2016 of deaths in a SUP activity was 2% out of the 700 and I think maybe 700 plus
yeah,
recreational boating deaths in 2016, 2%
yeah,
from involved stand-up paddle boards. That's up from 1% the year before. Biggest accident, biggest death activity in that report is by far open cockpit motorboats, followed by canoes and kayaks.
yeah. Well, there's the safety hit. We're going to do this video each week, so I'm going to try and keep them. We were trying to keep it towards the 6 to 8 minutes, but look, the CHUM's out. This is going to be in the CHUM. You've got the Mullet Summer Reading Part 1 that just came out this morning. Yeah, Barbarian Days. You have Kook in
Captain
there.
Zero.
Captain Zero, one of my
And
favorites.
if you need to justify why being on the water feels so good,
Yep.
New Mind.
Yeah, and that's Jacques Cousteau's granddaughter does the opening. Cousteau. Can't think of what her
Let's see.
name is.
We will find out.
Yeah, it's
Celine
amazing.
Cousteau.
I've been in the Cousteau Society since I think I was 4. Thank you, Aunt Dee Dee, who cared enough back then. And we also have a bunch of videos that are up. The Drafting 101 with Larry Kane. I put there's the Finn Film Company director's reel. Chris Aguilar. I mean, he's a paddler. He's a
Awesome
prone
stuff.
paddler. His videos are amazing. If you are looking to have someone come and video and really capture the passion and the people of your event, you just can't go wrong by getting Chris out there. He's going to be out at the Molokai to Oahu filming and reporting as he usually does. He's amazing. And then we got a really cool thing. If you want to, the Maui to Molokai was kind of interesting, and not just because Annabelle won or the usual things, but Zane actually made history.
Yeah, the Maui to Molokai Challenge. Foil history again. Zane Schweitzer in Zane. Apparently the first person to foil that race across the channel, the whole 26 some odd miles of it on a foil board. So he's again innovating and doing some absolutely amazing things on the starboard board with the foil.
Wow. Well, there's a whole bunch of stuff up there. We also have another thing in the CHUM that's from the archive. So I threw in a bunch of articles that were popular in the past years. Surf Ski 101, tips and trips for getting out on the ocean. A really good video from the ACA on how to get back on your paddleboard if you fall off. Tips for race directors starting a SUP race. I've actually been wearing my Hi-Ho Suntech shirt, and
Yeah,
I've been
love
wearing that a
those.
lot. I'm
Me
not wearing it
too.
now because this is the Sea Paddle's coming up. If you guys haven't signed up for it, sign up for it. Going to the Brooklyn Bridge. Someday you're going to do this with me, Lisa, because it's awesome. But anyway, the Hi-Ho great shirts are amazing.
Yeah.
Also put in a really cool video of Cynthia Aguilar, who's one of our mullet favorite prone paddlers, who's besides paddling from Cuba to Key West, twice now, once solo and once
Yep.
with a relay. There's a really cool C2C 11-mile downwinder, and I remember when I first started paddling prone, I saw that video of her downwinding and knee paddling. It was it was like I didn't know people could do that on that board. So
Yeah.
so kind of cool stuff. Got a couple of events that are sponsoring this. This is the Space Coast Paddle Fest down in Cocoa Beach, Florida, on the 9th of September. That is going to be right after Surf Expo. So Surf Expo, all the hard goods that went from outdoor retailers are now going there in the fall. It should be the big show, and I'm looking forward to doing that. So the day after that, we're going to go over to Cocoa Beach and race there. We've got if you want to try the Paddle Monster training platform, there's a 10-day trial in the CHUM. You can go in there and there's a code PDL-mullet, and you can get 10 days and check it out. The more you support that, the more you get to see the mullet. We got the Sea Paddle, which we already talked about, but again, that's coming up in August 5th, and I just can't wait to paddle under the Brooklyn Bridge, see Yankee Stadium, see what floats down the East River besides me. 100 challenge. We've got a t-shirt pre-order, and that is gone tomorrow. You can also order your stickers. Thanks for your donations. There's 1,500 of you, and I'm trying to send them all out. I do batches of them. And the classifieds. So we had 15 boards sell, used boards all over the country. The classifieds are going nuts. Getting signups 10 or more a day. People that are getting on there listing or contacting people. So kind of cool. I actually, you see this kind of sup bubble popping, and then all of a sudden you've got this like burst. So we're seeing a lot of secondary market stuff with the used paddle boards, and I think that barrier of entry going down for all these people, I think it's a really good thing. I think it's going to be, more people on the water, more people owning boards, and a lot of people upgrading, which is cool. A lot of new listings, which is cool. And then we also have so you've got the Great Peconic race, which is up around Shelter Island in New York on September 9th. That race just looks insane. I really want to do that. Maybe next year will be my year for that. And then of course OABI. We're going out August 12th to Detroit. There's going to be a Paddle Monster clinic Friday and Saturday, so you can get some technique work. But really some great stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks.
So let's jump to the left coast and give it a little love. This weekend kicks off the Gorge Downwind Championships in the Columbia River Gorge, Hood River. Primarily known for outrigger and surf ski. It is open to sup. It's sold out. But we will be there, and hopefully Coach Tennille Hatton is going to be there as well.
6-time world surf ski champion. And keep your eye on this race, because I know Chattajack sells out like in minutes, but this is the race that I think is going to be the hardest one to get into in the next coming maybe 3 to 4 years.
It could very well be. But just the idea, if you've never been to the Hood River Gorge, the idea of seeing a huge contingent of 6-man OCs coming up that river is going to be really exciting. I can't wait to see that.
And up and down is going to be confusing the hell out of me, because you're actually going up the river, even though you're surfing down the waves. So, also the thing about the gorge is it's like an accessible Maliko for the mainland. Right. So it's like you can get there with your boat if you drive. I know people that have driven from Florida, and what I love about it is you pay your fee, and then you've got the ferry. You can get you take the run, you get out, you put your board on the trailer, and they drive you back to the start. So you just keep doing that. It's an 8-mile run, I believe.
Mm-hmm. 8 to 10 miles.
And I mean, the waves there, if you haven't seen it, you could drive a truck between them some days. So some
days it's interesting. And I chatted with Jeremy Riggs about this, and he kind of confirmed my observation. The run itself, in terms of the kinds of bumps, is really a lot like the Kihei run on the other side of Maui from Maliko when it's firing. You don't get the big swells that you see on Maliko. So it's a little bit different technique, a little bit different way to finesse that, but super, super fun.
Yeah, and I just looked it up, and the surf ski division, which is sold out, had 260 entrants. The outrigger division was sold out with 190 entrants. The sup long course had 60 entrants are sold out, and the short course is sold out, and I don't know how many will be there.
Right.
So,
And it's not to be confused with the Nash Gorge Paddle Challenge, which is in August,
yep.
which features the double downwinder race, the downwinder race, and the course race. They're based at the event site in Hood River. Two different races coming up.
And we would be remiss if we didn't mention that the Pacific Paddle Games just opened up registration too. So you can find them online by Googling it. And I'll probably put a link in if I can remember. Well, Lisa, you suck because you're getting on a plane. Sorry.
And not only that, but I just got back from a long weekend in Chattanooga. Yeah. So watch for maybe a story about things to do in Chattanooga when you're not chatta-jacking, because it's a phenomenal paddle town.
And hopefully we'll get some reports from Coley. Again, Paddle Monster coach Tennille Hatton will be out there. Look them up and look for Lisa. So have a great weekend, everybody. Lisa, I think this is going to work out. We've hopefully we're recording this Skype thing, and thanks for your support. The mullet, the classifieds are free, and 15 boards sold. So let's just say $20,000 worth of boards sold, and nobody even bought a hat. So we have to change that business model so that we can afford hats. Thanks for our advertisers. They keep us alive. Support the companies that support the mullet. That's all I can say. And Lisa, have a safe trip.
All right, thanks.
Talk to you all later.
Be safe, everybody. Aloha.